Herkese merhaba.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the TWEC at Home Global Outlook to Turkish Supply Chain event. The TWEC started a series of events, and for the fourth time, we are together and we'll be discussing about Global Outlook to Turkish Supply Chain. In particular, by June 2021, in particular in terms of YEKDEM, Renewable Energy Support Mechanism, we have actually learned our lessons. Same for the pandemic. It's actually a system that is in place now. We have a global outlook to the supply chain of this industry. 10 gigawatt again is actually a level that we are about to reach, and we are together with the masters of the industry today. I would like to welcome each and every one of them. For efficient use of time, I will immediately move to the panel. We'll have two actual sessions. Our panelists will discuss about the industry and about their own experiences, about the regional and the local approaches in the supply chain, and will update us. And on the other side, we'll have the second part, the second session. Again, it's just going to be a Q&A and the last updates. And then for the last 15 minutes, this time we'll give the floor to you, and we'll refer your questions to the panelists. And at the bottom of your screen, there is actually an Ask a Question button, Q&A. You can possibly refer your questions to us. And we would appreciate if you also mention about the specific panelists that you refer your question to, if available and if any. We have Ateş Çelik, Mahmut Güldoğan, TPI Composites, Gökhan Serdar. From Siemens Gamesa, Necmettin Aslan. From Doğu Aksa, Tamer Bozacı. And from Aselsan, Günay Şimşek. These are the panelists. So I'd like to move to the panelists immediately. From Ateş Çelik, CEO, Mahmut Güldoğan. The microphone is yours. Welcome again. Thank you. I would like to express my greetings to all the participants. Maybe you would remember it was November 2019 in Ankara. We actually had a great event, and by TWEC, of course, we missed those days, all the stakeholders at the same place. And we actually had a great congress at that time, and hopefully, in the shortest extent possible, we'll have the chance to have physical events. But of course, I would like to thank Turkish Wind Energy Association for organizing these events. Very briefly, I would like to mention about what we are doing with a couple of slides, and then after sharing my screen, I will move on. I think my screen is okay. Yes, everything is okay. Now, at İzmir-Çanakkale Highway, these are our facilities. You can see the sea, that is Çandarlı Port. And we have two factories, and we manufacture towers and 1,500 megawatts per year annual capacity. Since 2019, direct drive generator that we manufacture, and the capacity 650 megawatts per year. We have almost 600, actually over 600 employees. So these are some of our products you can see on the photos, and the towers and the generators. As for the services that we offer to our customers, logistics, and at the same time, we deliver at the counterport in several engineering, projects. Also engineering projects that we have. New tower concept we have designed, we apply for a patent. And soon, in an academic journal, we will be publishing an article. And actually, we are very excited about this. So project management, supply chain management, and at the same time, site activities as well. Sometimes our customers are in need of some maintenance works and some survey requirements. So from our tower manufacturing, for today, I can say 150 meters of a hop height that we have reached so far as of today. And the new projects, 120, 130 meters in general in Turkey right now. For weight, 500, 600 tons for the tower. So I can say quite a huge equipment that we're speaking about. You can see our factory that we manufacture the generators. The one in the middle, the photo is so important. You can see the solar panels. So we use solar energy together with Aselsan. We also are working on a hybrid system project. Hopefully, in the short run, again, wind will be also connected to this, will be embedded. So it's going to be renewable energy products, the renewable energy components will actually be totally manufactured by totally renewable energy soon. And this is our office that is appreciated a lot of photo from our office. And it's actually published in an important architecture journal. I can say it helps us a lot, as you can see, full of sun, and we enjoy it a lot with the employees. That's all for my screen, and I would like to move on without the screen. Now, so it's a global outlook to supply chain. Once you tell me about this title, I just remember in my mind that the quality of the supply chain is all about being so resilient. In 2020, 1,125 megawatt already, and it was 1,402 megawatts previously, so the second top. So by the end of the fifth year, 528 megawatts. So probably the record will be broken. It was 1,402 megawatt record will go over. So 2020, 2021, I can say was so challenging both. And despite the challenges, together with all the stakeholders in collaboration and cooperation, we succeeded in doing so. I think that shows actually the Turkish supply chain, how actually resilient and strong it is. To the extent of my knowledge, I think the WEA will be publishing the industry inventory, as much as I know. And I heard yesterday that industry inventory will show us that there are 20,000 employees in the industry. And from this perspective, I can say probably it is over 20,000, but for all these 20,000 employees, I would like to greet them and appreciate their efforts on behalf of our industry and association. Of course, it is not only Turkey, maybe for a global outlook for the supply chain, it was 60,000 megawatts for the wind power. And it is the 52nd figure up to that date. And in 2020, 93,000 megawatts, again, a record broken. So what I'm saying is that it's not only the supply chain in Turkey, at the same time, we are a player at the global supply chain as well. And therefore, we also passed the test, the challenging times. Just to say a couple of things, for example, huge fluctuation in commodity prices, especially challenges in logistics, difficulty in finding containers, and the Suez Canal accident. And even if you pay for it, I mean, not possible to have access to commodities. Of course, the COVID-19 pandemic, and of course, lots of trouble and lots of challenges, but both the Turkish wind industry and the global wind industry actually have showed the strength of the supply chain that they have. As for projections for the future, as you all know, the wind industry reached two huge figures so far. It has a great infrastructure and good institutional capacity, and as you all know, the European Wind Energy Association, Global Wind Energy Association, and the Energy Agency, International Energy Agency, and the TWEA, they're all publishing different reports, as you know. And looking at these reports, even the most pessimistic scenario keeps the horizon open for the wind industry. So it means that we have a good opportunity in hand, a huge market ahead of us. And for 2050, again, net zero report by the International Energy Agency, which is so important in my opinion. Why? Also, our Ministry of Trade had an action plan. If you allow me, there is an expression by the minister, I would like to read it, and the distinguished minister, Mehmet Muş, is saying that European Union, not only as a climate policy, but at the same time as an economic transformation program, has this Green Deal. And it is in 2019 that is announced. So it's an economic transformation. It's not only something to do with the climate change. So that is the perspective that we should have for the future. And for us, it is not only we're not only representing the wind industry in Turkey, it is also the global wind supply chain that we are a part of, because we're at the eve of becoming a big player, and we should not underestimate the position that we have right now, in my opinion. Of course, there is also a responsibility on our shoulders. It was about our country, mainly employment, export, foreign trade deficit, and having less dependence abroad in the energy demand. But there is another responsibility now we have. Also the carbon targets, the climate change targets. We also should be a part of it as a player right now. And whenever possible, we should take initiative and also sacrifice somehow. What I mean is that not only for our country, but at the same time, at the global level, there is a common goal, a vision that we have the Green Deal, and it also, we should assume responsibility. It is motivating, but at the same time challenging. But I think we cannot escape from that. Now, at which part of the global supply chain we are, and there are 4 different markets according to the report: the North-South America, the Africa, Middle East, Asia Pacific, and Europe. That's how the market is divided in the report. So, and from the blade manufacturers, from the generator manufacturers, we're also manufacturing generator. I know that we are sending products to each of these 4 segments, to America, Africa, of course, to Europe, to Asia Pacific as well, Asia Pacific as well, even to China. I know we are sending equipment to China. I cannot give the disclosed name, so it's not to make an advertisement, but some of the components are even sent to China. We are capable of doing so. So it means that we have access, less or more, maybe little or not, but we have access to the entire segment. There is the full part of the glass, so we cannot underestimate this, but I think what we should do is not only fill in the empty part of the glass, but at the same time to carry this glass to the future without breaking the glass. Of course, we will continue to fill in the glass, but we should not forget the risk of breaking that glass. If you allow me, there are a couple of things I would like to say about what we should do about this. Now, first of all, about where competition, where technology is going ahead, we have to make a good analysis on this. And we should take the initiatives, and the necessary actions should be taken. We have requirements, of course. For example, we need a lively, dynamic internal market. We should make sure that it is active all the time. You know, hopefully 1500 megawatts will be reached, and we will go beyond it. And hopefully it will be 1500 megawatts each year on the top of this would be something optimistic. for the future each and every year. But I'd like to make a calculation in here. For 10 years, if we put, again, 1,500 megawatts, for example, 27,000 megawatts is what Spain has right now. Even with the best optimistic, I can say we are 10 or 11 years behind Spain. Well, I think the stakeholders should not accept this. We do not accept this. And I think no one should accept this. Minimum 1,500 megawatts should be installed. And I think everyone should take responsibility on this. And 500 megawatts a year, 1,000 megawatts, maybe I can say, will not make a lot of contribution, but 1,500 megawatts is the minimum that we need every year. Of course, the blade manufacturers, tower manufacturers, we are together with other manufacturers elsewhere. It is 5,000 megawatts, our own capacity. So 1,500 megawatts is not something that will feed us. But special new technologies, new turbines, new blades, new towers should, again, I mean, we could have a problem in terms of they're getting into the country, and we will have difficulty in updating ourselves. The other thing is to have an investment, promotion incentive that is inclusive. İzmir Development Agency has a nice report, and I would like to read from there. The incentive system that we have right now is for turbines, for generators, and for blades. If you do so, I'll give insight. Turbine is a vague expression. Generator, blade is open. It is explicit, but all the technologies are updated. Therefore, the incentive system also should be updated accordingly. Otherwise, it will be idle. Again, the development agency saying that this expression should be set turbine, generator, and all other components for wind industry, their manufacturing, and at the same time, the investments for blade manufacturing in the wind industry. We really worked hard on this. I mean, in terms of our tower investments to be a part of the incentive, but we failed to do so. But of course, we'll continue to work hard on this because that is the correct thing. And I think they probably will change it. And at the same time, I think each and every institution should help us on this, on a broader scope for the incentives. We need, at the same time, new manufacturers. For example, obstruction light, flashlight, we do not have a manufacturer. It would be nice for one of the local producers to do something. And about the gear systems, again, cannot be activated. And hopefully someone will do the gear factory. And if we can do it, we also would love to do so. And therefore, for our supply chain to be more powerful, there are certain raw materials that we can supply, but of course, we need more competition on this. And as for some of the components that we cannot supply, there is the need for the new investments. Without just getting over my time, I would like to say, and we need roads and ports. The components are getting bigger, and we actually cannot transport them, load them at the ports. If you're telling me what we have done so far, we did it somehow with challenges, but from now on not be possible. It is 80 meters of blade that we have. And therefore, without breaking the glass, I think this road transport and port issue should be solved. And lastly, maybe the most difficult part, offshore. We need actually an optimistic and brave roadmap, and a brave roadmap that we need. And at the same time, we need leadership from the authorities and the institutions. Of course, it is port infrastructure, and for these types of things, the public institutions and the associations are very important. I think all the associations, mainly TWEA and Development Agency and all the other public agencies, I would like to thank them for their efforts. I also would like to thank you all.
Thank you very much. It's been really a very good opening talk, and it's been really good hearing you. Firstly, would like to congratulate you for using solar energy on your roof. And Green Alliance, I think, is really important, particularly in terms of carbon applications. And on one side, it's an opportunity, but on the other hand, it may be a threat. The Ministry of Trade has been working on it. I personally attended on the certificates and documents for the Green Alliance, and we are thankful for their leadership. And in this respect, both in terms of global policies and in terms of the EU policies and regional ones, I think we are witnessing that the policies that support wind power is evolving, developing, and strengthening. So, for Turkey, I think the main message should be 1,000 is not enough, 1,500 should be the target. Actually, in terms of the European Green Alliance document that was prepared in the coordination of the Ministry of Trade, also has shed light to the action plan that us, the Ministry of Energy, has also been contributing to. And there is also the need for revising and maybe reviewing this document. And from the perspective of supply chain, both in terms of investments and cost reductions, there are uncovered areas like the lighter, that example you've given. It's really an important, maybe an opportunity. On the other hand, the European Union is absolutely important in terms of next generation EU framework. So there is a new generation EU, and Turkey is responding to that, because one of the main target markets, not only for the wind, but also in the general sense, is the European Union. Therefore, in this respect, supporting global policies is really important. COVID stress test, and at the same time, YEKDEM 2021 to catch up for 2021, as I think has been really important tests for the market. And it is really important as an analogy that you have made to the glass. When filling it, we need not to crack it. And we have supplies for all the domains of the sector. So it's really an exciting panel that we're attending because we are always getting surpluses in this industry. So down with these notes, the review of ISCA and your mention of the turbine generator blade tripod, I think, should not be considered as a gained competency, but we need also to add the tower to that maybe equation. So there is a homework on the side of the association. I think has been doing really great works, not only this kind of symposia, but at the same time other works. I'd like to congratulate their executive board for their contribution to the industry. And when we get into the 10 gigawatt league, it deserves a good celebration. Supply to 4 areas, I think, as you have not mentioned and just said that you're selling to China, but TPI Gökhan just has given good news for that. And then I will turn to TPI CFO, our dear CFO Gökhan Serdar. Thank you very much, Mahmut Güldoğan. Of course, if we receive questions, we will be addressing to you. Gökhan, the floor is yours now. Thank you very much, Mr. Oğuz. It's been really a very good introduction to our discussion, and it's been a very good introductory debate by Mr. Güldoğan. Actually, we're on the same track. Briefly, I would like to just talk briefly about what we've been doing, and I'm trying to share my screen. I don't know if it's a technical problem or not, but I'm really trying.
Evet, şimdi geliyor sanıyorum.
Probably coming now. So I'll be very brief and quick about TPI because I'm sure that many of the attendees are familiar, as we've discussed this in many other panels. TPI is the largest independent blade manufacturer globally. Last year, 1 out of every 3 manufactured blades belonged to TPI, so we have 32%. And of course, it's ex-China since this country has different dynamics, but major OEMs are being supplied by us, except for wind. We have the automotive industry that we're covering for advanced composites. It's another business that we are doing, but our main business is wind. Now, our journey in Turkey started back in 2012, and at the very point we are speaking about $500 million. Actually, we've reached this turnover in Turkey, and it's really a big area that we're serving with 4,200 employees. We are mostly working on exports, 70% exports. And the luck we have is within the global picture of TPI, we have almost 30% of a share, which means that we have a considerable amount of share in the turnover of TPI. And this brought us the outstanding first place in the exporter in Asia. And this is my last slide for TPI. On the map, you can see the location of our facilities. And you can see on the lower panel Izmir Port, and upside you can see Chandarlı Port. And then I will be referring in detail to Chandarlı further. And in total, you can see the number of blades and the evolution of the number of our staff. It's been a very fast growth in terms of the number of employees. It means 3 to 5 gigawatts of size. I think in this respect, we are speaking about a big scale, a considerable scale. And then I will stop sharing. Now, actually, we need to look at the mirror briefly. From this size, I mean, $500 million US dollar worth of a turnover, 400 million is about services and, of course, raw material purchases, which means there is a huge need in Turkey about the supply chain. By the way, I'm speaking only for TPI, and there is the other speakers and panelists will be speaking. They will come on top of it. And in this respect, from the perspective of TPI, we are speaking about a really considerable amount of anchor investment. We have attracted international investors to Turkey, and Ateş Wind Power also was contributed in terms of the growth with the size. There is also the unconsiderable share of YEKDEM, also the legislation in this respect. As the industry grew, economic also elements contributed to the growth of the sector. This is our reflection on the mirror, which means the full side of the glass, as Mahmoud said. But let's turn a bit to the future. What lies in the future? In the past, there were opportunities. We made use of it, and it's just taken us to these days. But what is there in the future? Actually, there is something that we need to thank the pandemics for. The awareness in terms of climate change has been raised thanks to pandemics. And we've now understood that we need to make peace with nature, and we need to be friends with the environment. Of course, in terms of climate change, there was an awareness, but I don't know if it was truly sincere or not. But I'm sure that after this day onwards, we'll have a more sincere way of perceiving the climate change. And I think that we are getting to consider the size and significance of this issue, which pushes the entire world to this. The Green Deal, I think, is really a good example to that. And in this respect, everyone is paying more attention to zero carbon emissions. I think it's going to be a big opportunity for all of us. And then here we're speaking on behalf of the wind energy, but in terms of the humanity, I'm really very glad that we otherwise wouldn't have had a world to live for the future. It's nice to see these changes. Even the presidency elections affected at this trend, Biden's perspective towards it, which because we know that the United States has a lot of influence to the rest of the world, and Biden, I think, is going through very nice policies, and they are giving incentives to the ones who decommission their coal power plants. It's very nice, and G7 has been discussing the same thing, and now they have decided not to finance the coal power plants, at least the G7s. So I think there is a trend from fossil fuels to green energy, maybe more than ever. So it's going to have very big opportunities inside of it. I'm glad for it since I'm a human, but from the business perspective, I believe there are big opportunities like that. But I think there are other opportunities in it because our motto is decarbonize and electrify. So it's really important to reduce the carbon emissions, to increase the electrification. Since we are existing in both industries, and plus electric vehicles, I think it's really a big opportunity for all of us because every investment will be switching to electrified vehicles, and green policies will be preferred in this respect. So electric vehicles are coming and really coming strong. I think it's going to support us as an industry as well. So all of these, I think, have squeezed into maybe 2 to 3 years of a transition time, but it's going to, after that, rocket high. And we need to get prepared as the supply chain for that when it happens, because the countries are guiding their strategic investments and priorities in this respect. And now that we have the supply chain in Turkey, it's going to be quite a strategic field for Turkey in the future, because as the rocket kicks off, I think the more share we get, the better contributions we'll have for our economy. Because yesterday we have reached enormous size, 3.2 kilowatts. Maybe considering the total, it's 100. So it's 100 gigawatts of total installed capacity last year only in the world. 1.3 is really good, but as a supply chain, we have 100 potential. Therefore, within the supply chain, we have already existing opportunities. On top of it, there will be other opportunities to come when the rocket kicks off. And continuing with the same analogy, yes, the full side of the glass is bigger, but we need maybe to switch to a pitcher rather than a glass, because there will be enormous opportunities in the future. So another window, I think, would be for offshore, because speaking of the future trends in the market, I think offshore is going to grow much faster. Last year, 6.5 gigawatts of a global size we've spoken of, and now by 2030, it will be 32, 33 gigawatts of expected capacity, which means it'll grow by fivefold, which I think is a big opportunity, another big opportunity. And I look at it from the perspective of the supply chain again. We have already working supply chain, but we need to align it for the offshore and start serving for the segment as well, because at least 1/3 of the 32, 33 gigawatts would be EMEA. And I mean, the first coming countries will be UK or the other Europeans, but the EMEA region will also come after that. So there is one upsetting point, though, which I need to mention. Yes, I mean, my personal responsibility also is for the EMEA region, but naturally, for the offshore, we are considering EMEA region, but it's really upsetting me that we are not able to submit an offer from Turkey, because offshore needs to be on the port. And now, speaking particularly of the region that is so close to Izmir, which is so in proximity to the installed capacity or to the supply chain, we have the Chandarlı port. Now that we're speaking about the rocket kickoff, and offshore needs to be a part of it. So I think Chandarlı port must be considered as a way of functioning and serving for this segment in the future. And specifically Ateş Çelik, İSKA, Ateş Wind Power, I think they are the leading positions, but both the private and and the NGOs, I think, are supporting this position, including TUREP. But I think we need to attract more attention to this because it's really going to be a very good opportunity. Plus, if you make it possible in Chandarlı, not limited to offshore, but at the same time onshore equipment or blade growth, maybe a specialized or maybe freeze on, I don't know, whatever may be needed for the port, hinterland of the port. I think that structure will serve for the opportunities in the future so that we'll have more chance of growing. So many opportunities, but still too much to be done. Maybe the rest I will spare for the second round. Thank you very much for the moment, and then I will leave the floor to the next panelist.
Şu an sesim geliyor mu? Geliyor. Tamam. Çok teşekkürler.
Thank you very much. We're really proud to hear from you, and you actually put the big picture so well, you and Mahmut Güldoğan. 3,000 again blades and 3.5 gigawatts. It's actually a good success story, and therefore congratulations to you and everyone at the executive board. In particular, I would say in your talk, you mentioned about the windows of opportunity very well managed in the past. So also for the future, we focused on the upcoming opportunities. And in parallel to Mahmut Güldoğan, you mentioned about things, and especially mentioned about the analogy with the rocket that launched. So Bezos actually launched the rocket, same for Musk and Branson. So you're saying we're also here. So I think the wind industry at the same time, why not? The supply chain is actually getting prepared to launch the rocket, I should say. And I think your main message is about this preparation stage, especially this should be considered in some of the strategic decisions. And as Mr. Güldoğan also touched upon the logistics, probably at the second part, we'll focus more on this. Chandarlı Port, and looking at the European Green Deal, European Union at the same time is prioritizing the wind industry, as we all know, and mainly offshore prioritized among the wind powers. So I think one of your main messages in here is we should be a part of this offshore. And of course, together with the relevant stakeholders, it means that we need to intensify the works and we should work in collaboration for offshore. Thank you for that. So I would like to move to Necmettin Aslan and Siemens Gamesa. So we listened to Ateş Çelik, then TPI Composites. Now time for Siemens Gamesa. So from the window of Siemens Gamesa, what Mr. Aslan is thinking about the supply chain management, the opportunities and projections for the future. Yes, please. The floor is yours. Thank you. Hello, everyone. I would like to extend my gratitude to all of you. I'm actually more than happy to be here with you again. But as Mahmut said, of course, we missed those days, the atmosphere that we were physically together. So actually, this is the last actually chain of the series of events by TWEC, and at the same time, it is actually an environment that we can share our ideas together. Siemens Gamesa, maybe a brief information about the company, and then about the industry in general, about the situation in Turkey, where we are, what we can do. I will share those with you. So Siemens Gamesa, at the global 112 gigawatt global installed onshore plus offshore, and 26,000 employees. Of course, as Gökhan also mentioned, the biggest factor in here is actually 85-90% of a turbine of the manufacturing is very critical. So and especially for the supply chain is very important in here. So from the very beginning to the end, I mean, before the start of the investment, you have to do a good planning, a good preparation, and until the very end, and probably it also would be the case, there will be, the government is giving license for 49 years and the turbine life is 25 years, and it should be renewed at the end of the 25 years. So I guess at the very beginning of the investment, while planning for the 49 years, I think in all parts of the supply chain, not only the materials, components, but logistics, installation, engineering, service, all the other factors should be considered. And I think just like in all the industries also, I believe this is very well used, especially there's digitalization. There are so many pluses, artificial intelligence and data analysis. And together with all these things, I guess there's actually the need to get better and efficient decisions. So from a strategical point of view, I think the OEMs or the companies through the bottom, I would say it would be tower or blade manufacturers, they all, I believe, this is an overall ecosystem that we have. As Siemens Gamesa, as I told you, onshore plus offshore, we actually have 30, 40 years of experience on this, and in the different markets, we are a pioneer, especially at offshore, quite a huge market share. And therefore, from technological point of view, I would say we are actually a trendsetter. In offshore, in particular, as I'm always saying it, especially as the people who are working at global companies, and you always should actually have contribution to the roots of the company. Also, as a Turkish person, we're just trying to have more added value. And in particular, I would say in our country, for example, we always support to have more in the country. Of course, in doing so, I think one of our priorities, we mentioned about the Green Deal and so on, but before that, I think there's something more basic than this. This is health, safety, and environmental protection, especially for the healthy return and safe return of our employees to their homes is very important, of course, without giving any harm to the environment. So at the same time, carbon emissions, I mean, to be carbon negative and trying to reduce the harm given to the environment to the extent possible. Very briefly about what we're doing in Turkey after 2009. That is actually, in particular, the growth of the market, maybe the glass, I would say. Actually, we changed the glass after 2009, have a bigger glass, and so on. Maybe it is actually the time to get to reach to the bottle. We started with the towers, and then foundations and blades, generator, transformer, and then your system.
Bu noktaya gelene kadar
So,
aslında yani
up to now, I would say we actually well feel the leverage of YEKDEM, both at the manufacturer and the supplier side. I think that's all about the correct use of the correct policy, how efficient it could be if you use the correct policies at the correct time. And therefore, from global to Turkey, technology transfer and more investment coming. And therefore, I would say it's about the shift of the intellectual level and increasing the technical capability in the market and in the industry. And then 2 years ago, the nacelle factory installed and R&D center. Of course, R&D center is very important. Why? Because these two, I would say, again, work under YEKA, actually a requirement under YEKA, the regulation, but R&D center, I should say, gives us a big opportunity, a great potential utilized there, because at the global platforms in Turkey, there's a good engineering infrastructure and a engineering capability, a young dynamic population and very well trained, and plus very close to the critical centers. So it's actually a preference at the same time in terms of cost. So as to preserve this at the same time, you make well use of this. So we thank to YEKA, we now have an R&D center in Turkey. And we apply for patents and continue to apply for more patents at the R&D center, and especially working in integration with the other R&D centers abroad. So in our R&D center, we have a team and a special working specifically for the supply chain. And with the information from the global, and they support it with the local knowledge, and therefore in a way it's a partnership. So we actually have more knowledge transfer to and from the R&D center with NASA components at the same time. We will continue. Turkey is not a market only. I mean, I have to mention it as an OEM from our perspective, I would say, and at the same time a source for supply, not only for components, for service, it could be crane, it could be for transport, and regional power. And therefore, at the global, in particular after the pandemic, there's an increase in the cost of the raw materials and unavailability of the transport and so on. And the expectation, I would say, at that time was actually the market would be down, but just with devotion, with sacrificing, with some wise policies, of course, actually we go beyond and ahead of the expectations, especially after COVID-19. I think the market will grow bigger. In particular, from the regional perspective, there is the geopolitical position of Turkey is good, but from time to time, not so good because of our neighbors. I mean, your east, your south, there's instability there. Maybe it will take 10, 15 years for them to become more stable, which will give us opportunities for bigger and better markets. Because as you all know, you just cannot actually grow immediately, instantly. You have to do it slowly. And therefore, our expectation is that Turkey, from the regional perspective, with better stability in the region, will grow as a power. This is an ecosystem. The investors are growing, same for OEM, same for the suppliers, and therefore more employment. And it's actually an added value for the Turkish economy. And just like the automotive industry, I'm sure wind also will be a success story. I hope 10 will be 2030 in the future. Spain is actually a trend school to us, and it is actually, they have a government incentive, which is actually so sound and so consistent from the very beginning. And I think our government, our state, for the industrials, for the investors should continue with the incentives. New technologies, the turbines are getting larger. So, for example, 2 megawatts of turbines a couple of years ago, but now it is actually 5, 6, 6.5 of the output. I'm sure that this will go more. Specific to Izmir, the development agency has a great support for the companies, both from perspective of investments and at the same time for better, smooth functioning of the works, and in terms of reporting. It is very important for us to have more number of such institutions, and they also have to be integrated all together. At least everyone will be synchronized, because our goal is known. Our goal is actually to have actual motion in Turkey. It will be good for industry, good for employment, and therefore, as I told you, it is actually such a system. And as the industry, I would say, our suppliers are around the Aegean region, around Izmir. In terms of transport, there are so many challenges that we have. The blades cannot be carried. They are so big that we have more width of the towers. Therefore, in terms of macro transport, we expect something to be done around Izmir. I know the municipality is doing something about this, but we don't know yet about this. But the Green Deal and the green energy, as you all know, with regards to hydrogen energy, there are so many works done also by Siemens. In the previous talks, I think Ali also mentioned about this. I mean, the green, the hydrogen, also in terms of the supply of that, there is actually a potential for us.
sektörün büyümesiyle ilgili yani
With regards to growth of the industry,
çalışma yapılabilir. Bununla ilgili
what we can do, maybe I can speak about this at the next part, the second session. Thank you very much.
Necmettin Bey gene örüntüleyerek konuşuyorlar. Bunlar
And I do see that the talks are complementing each other. It's really good that every panelist is continuing from where the previous speaker stopped. And the supplier chain has been pictured quite well by our speaker. And from design to engineering, supply to repair, I think, and to decommissioning even, I think we need to consider the sector as a full-scale coverage. So the window of opportunity has enlarged a bit more, I have to say. So subtly, we are all experiencing this, and I would like to congratulate Siemens Gamesa for the R&D Center for their activities there. So YEKA, I'm sure that has been
eylem veyahut da bir ön
leading
açık.
action, or maybe the road paver, I have to say, in emerging the potential. So R&D is really an important aspect to emphasize, both in terms of stuffing and the other aspects. The opportunities for the previous YECTAM also really eased away, as our speaker rightfully mentioned, and Mahmut Güldoğan emphasized the price-related stress as well. So the expectations were on the road to decline, so the sector has just been an important one there. Therefore, particularly speaking for the supply chain, many industries are just experiencing a narrow downs, but the wind industry has a very significant success story, not limited to Turkey, but globally as well. So ISKA's contribution is relevant, and we were together with in the commissioning of the EU project with Mr. Güray, and we spoke of the same thing, and there was reference to the post-COVID time, and we need to be prepared before the rocket takes off. Actually, why not? So it's really important because we've had important gains in this time as well. And finally, Power to X, I have to say that transforming energy or electricity into different shapes, hydrogen may be an aspect. Electrification and renewable energy in mobility has been a point of emphasis. It's been really an important evolution, I have to say, that in the creation of YEKTE. And I was also involved in the process with my colleagues. And after the blockchain registry, I have to say that digitalization has been an important part of the process. Well, thank you. Another important player of the sector in terms of raw material supply, Dovaksa. And we're moving to Dovaksa now. Mr. Tamer Bozacı will be the next speaker, and the floor is yours. Firstly, I would like to express my gratitude to all panelists, and it's really an important, a good activity. And I know that it were good times when we were face to face together, but it's also nice here. Now, our manufacturing is rather an invisible component, and I will introduce Davaxa a bit, and I will speak about our manufacturing activities and briefly finish with that, because both Gökhan and Necmettin have already said what I want to say, so I will be echoing a bit what they have already emphasized.
Okay. Şimdi bu grafik.
Now the graph on the screen quite well corroborates with Gökhan's rocket analogy. I mean, looking up to the horizon to 2050, there is a considerable increase in renewables. I mean, there is a very important share taken from the fossil fuels, and also wind, obviously, tends to increase its share quite relevantly. So it's really a big potential for us. As all of the stakeholders and participants here, I think it's a promising graph. So there are some elements that would make it possible. From the eye of Dovaksa, I have to say that systems developed for this purpose and contribute to lowered electricity outputs, lower running costs, I think will give us the biggest leverage impact for this. When supported with technology, it's not very difficult to see this increase in share. Now, we have not seen any loss of share in the market due to COVID-19, and we would expect the same to sustain. As the previous speakers have emphasized, the strong supply chain in wind made it possible. I mean, going through the process without any loss. It's strong market, at the same time quite flexible, quite good transfer amongst the players, I think, made it possible for the sector to go through this period with minimum loss, and we expect further growth even. Now, I have shown this slide in my previous presentations. We do see a growth in the blades to increase efficiency and to lower cost. This is the biggest, I think, contribution of OEMs. And to help this, carbon fiber derivative composites are being used to support this process. Unique mechanical features of the carbon fiber systems are the biggest leverage in this evolution. In the carbon fiber industry, wind is the star, I mean, which is getting brighter every other day. As we've seen this happening in COVID-19, our biggest business is with the aviation and defense industries. The fact that the planes were not in the air has been an important factor, but wind compensated for this gap. But I have to say that in the carbon fiber industry, the biggest consumer is wind, and we are quite lucky to be a leading factor here. We do see a considerable growth potential there, and only in terms of carbon fiber, it's up to 20% of the growth in the wind solely. And therefore, with this infrastructure in this technology that we are producing, I'm sure that we can bring it up to better places. So in the blades, we name it as the invisible hero because it's not a visible portion. It is actually the component that takes the entire power, the force of the blade. The plates that you're seeing is the carbon fiber reinforced composite profile. And there are different designs that can be followed here to create this hinge. Actually, in terms of the cost, it has an important place in the cost, so it's an important component. I have to say that 22% of the total blade is because of our panels. So it's really an important factor in the entire wind business. We made a review of where the technology is heading because we start off with carbon fiber as the starting point. But after that, there are different forms of carbon fiber that can be used in the blades. The latest version is the polyurethane resin combined fibers. The green panels represent onshore, and I have a slide dedicated for offshore. Even in the onshore, this green portion, the carbon protrusion, is considered to take a significant share from the other reinforcers and is the leader now. In 2019, we are just evolving in this respect. And the glass fiber infusion, carbon infusion, and the dark blue is carbon prepag. Now, pultrusion has rightfully become the leader because the carbon fiber features can be used to the maximum level when you use the pultruded plate. This is the example that I want to show you. These are the plates that we are using. It's quite strong. It looks like a stone, but it's bendable. And we send this to our customers as bended. There are millions of carbon fiber filaments inside combined with resin. In 2019, on the scale of the OEMs, we started with Vestas, the use of the pultruded plates, and within 10 years, it's expected to grow by sevenfold. So pultrusion really will be growing quite dramatically. And the same is true for offshore as well, because you know that the blades are bigger in the offshore, and there 27 folds of an increase is expected there for growth. So we are unique in Turkey. We are the only and the first in the use of these plates. There will be more use, and in this way, we will be supporting the offshore platforms in the future as well. Briefly, I'd like to turn to Davaxa. In 2012, we started with the merger of two big companies, Dow Chemicals and Acrylics. Now, Dow is one of the biggest chemical companies globally. It has chemical solutions. It has a significant R&D and engineering infrastructure. AXA is the biggest acrylic fiber company. It's important because it is the raw material of carbon fiber. So with AXA, carbon fibers have developed, and then the merger happened. And since 2012, we've been continuing as Davaxa. We're established and based in Yalova. This is the area where we are based. And next doors, AXA is just positioned. Actually, have emerged from inside of them, so we are always together. We're bound to them. We get our energy, water from there. All services are supplied from AXA. And this location has been quite advantageous for us because this is one of the biggest locations in the world for this business unit, because therefore we have the highest efficiency. We can compete quite well. We can compete with anyone around the globe, including the Chinese. So in this respect, I think wind is evolving the biggest sector, and we are getting ready to fulfill the needs of this wind industry. We are fully integrated, which I will be covering in a minute. And for integration in this value chain, we can see that the portion up to blade starts with oil, then propylene obtained, and acrylonitrile is produced in Alia, and we can also get it from petchem. And then from acrylonitrile, first polymer and big white acrylic fibers can be produced. Actually, this is a bit evolved version, or maybe a modified version of acrylic fiber that has been manufactured by AXA for quite a long time. Then we convert it to carbon fiber, then united with polyurethane resin that we purchase from Dow, we achieve manufacturing in plates. So then it will be referred to the blade manufacturers, blade manufactured. And as you know quite well, the wind energy turbines are fed with these supplied materials. So in this value chain, this is the coverage of Davaxa and Dow. You can see there is a significant portion covered in this value chain. From acrylonitrile, I think to this point it's been quite a long way, because when we first started with carbon fibers back in 2007 or 6, 97% was had to be just exported because there was no field of use in Turkey. But now things have changed of the wind, and now we are of course exporting to very high levels. We have more than 70% of exports, but the remaining portion can be used in Turkey now, which I think is quite pleasing. One of the biggest clients is TPI Gökhan's company, and we are working quite hand in hand with them. And it's really a good chance that they're here because they are only 4 hours away and we're speaking the same language. And in our evolution, I think this has been a big advantage. And now we're picking the fruits, and the future is brighter, I have to say. Now, what has happened to change the process? Davaksa, DAO, and of course our collaboration with other counterparts. Tapras has been an Italian counterpart that we've cooperated. Low-cost carbon fiber was in our hand. Full integration, OEMs also were there, and we were there to respond to their growth needs. Local content provider, I think, company, I think it's really important. These are our strong muscles. We own our own technology, and this is true for carbon fiber and protruded plates as well. And from 1 year, we've just moved from an idea to manufacturing. And the same happened with carbon fiber, essentially. Actually, we considered carbon fiber as a business unit, and 3 years later, we were able to manufacture it at a scalable level. And now Davaksa. And the same happened with protrusion. We're still learning, evolving, and I'm sure that we'll bring it to better places. Here, the support of DAO has been quite important, particularly for protrusion. And they have provided full support in polyurethane as well. And there's experience, and for the last 40 years has been a big contribution for us in the protrusion technology. So what happened after that? In July 2017, we started manufacturing in our own technology, and now we are serving to 6 different sites globally. So far, 11 million meters of plates supplied. So it means 20 gigawatts energy, now roughly speaking, in this production. By the end of 2021, 12% of a market share is expected. And after this day onwards, the trend is quite good for wind, and we expect to grow, taking the wind in our shoulders. So all the conditions have been achieved, and we're working on it still. The project-based incentive package that was allocated to Davoxa in 2018 was only allocated to 8 companies. Davoxa was one of them. So I'm sure that it triggered our growth as well. Now, as an enabler to look at the entire industry, I think many of the things have been achieved in Turkey, which is quite proud to see in Turkey. And the things that we used to envy now are present in Turkey. Local protrusion is available now, and the export is just on the way. Smart incentives. These are on a project basis. I think the incentives are quite a good example. R&D, technology transfer supports are all being extended. Training, testing centers, and technology application centers play an important role. Siemens Gamesa started doing it. R&D activity is really a good role model. I have to say that as a big contribution to Turkey, because we keep trying to reach a better economy. But I think trying to do that, the biggest leverage is the technology itself. Bringing up these applications to Turkey, using it as a first user, and creating this culture is really important, is really valuable, because then you're creating a big infrastructure for technology, for human infrastructure, and manufacturing. It's going to be a preparatory way for the next step. Wind is expected to grow further, and it's going to take place in Davaksa's life for quite a long time. We can quite easily see this. And after that, on the scale of Turkey, mobility, as Gökhan said, mobility is another important aspect. Mobility will be the next player. It's on the way with our solutions, carbon fiber, and from carbon fiber, what we try to provide will be the new solutions. As our business unit in the United States is working on it, we have a small-scale R&D team there. So we believe that it's going to be the next step. And as the user, green energy will be a very good example for the future. So this way, we sincerely believe that the market will be growing further on wind and green side. This is all for my presentation, but if there is any question, I will be available for it as well.
Thank you very much. You actually showed a very good example in your presentation in the industry, and carbon fiber, and then moving to protrusion and the commercialization there, and how actually it affected access to the market. And without another brand, probably Dow AXA will make you fly. I mean, it's just like an advertisement motto, and because you showed physically actually the laminate, and you also showed us how a good commercial director you are, offshore, onshore. You touched upon the trends there, and how the trends are evolving, in particular from the perspective of the raw materials. You shared it with us. You pay attention to competitive edge, and that you are competitive, and at the same time, maybe your main industry is not wind, but at the same time, you mentioned that your focus point is also wind in the upcoming year. And in terms of the enablers, you also mentioned about the evolution of Turkey, and it is supporting the windows of the opportunity that we have. Thank you very much for your presentation. And in a way, I would say, you make reference to Mahmut Güldoğan. Technology is changing, the platforms are changing, and there is the need for new investments. So we're speaking about the dynamic industry in here. It's not like actually we're making investments for blade, or for example, for the chemistry, it could be the glass in the steel industry and different things, but it is not an end, because it is evolving by itself, and a dynamic industry. So thank you. So last but not least, an important speaker, Aselsan, Günay Şimşek, in terms of supply chain, the pluses, the gains of Aselsan and their contribution. So the floor is yours. Thank you. I also would like to greet all the panelists and all the participants. And my presentation is a bit long, but I will make it so quick. But I'm sure all the presentations will be shared through the links. Yes. Actually, yes, from the web page of TWEA, I guess, yes, you will have a chance to have access to all the presentations here. Then I'll make it quick. So three main things that I would like to mention about. The first thing is why Aselsan is interested in wind, what we're doing about this, and the third thing is what are the collaborations that we plan for. So over these three things, I would like to move on with my presentation. So with regards to Aselsan, very briefly, why we are interested in wind mainly. 9,000 is the number of the employees that we have at Aselsan, 60% engineers. And we have several facilities in Ankara, and all the qualified personnel, we would like to use them in other places as well. That's the reason why we're interested in wind, because we have well-trained, highly qualified employees. So also our sales are increasing, and we are exporting to over 70 countries. Also, just like in the armed forces and in the defense industry, we have proven it. We also would like to reflect it to the civil area, and transport and energy under my responsibility. For transport and energy mainly, Just like in the defense industry, there are 4 main departments, and so we have a 5th one in 2014 for transport, clean energy transport, like electrified buses, about the rail systems that we're working on, in energy, renewable energy. So we have a separate department now, just like defense industry and the others. So we're just moving with the motto, we will reach with our energy, especially buses charged with renewable energy and the trains. In Ankara, in Turkey, at different places, we have several collaborations. You can actually find them from our webpage. Several international cooperation likewise. For R&D, we are actually known as an R&D company. And 10% of our turnover equity is given to R&D. But of course, also especially there are at the same time some other R&D projects supported by the defense industry, by the state, and it goes up over 25%. So $483.9 million and of R&D and $57 million worth from equity. So we are ready to invest on wind. With 64 different universities we are collaborating with, from Ankara, Istanbul not only, but mainly focusing and investing on the academicians there. In 2020, despite, of course, COVID-19, but 228 universities we work with, and $5.2 million worth of the project size that we have. So in terms of suppliers, collaboration with the suppliers, it's mainly over different platforms. And at the second part of my presentation, I will focus more on this, but 3,200 the SMEs that we work with, $1.6 billion worth of an order. And in 2020, $886 million worth of payment made to those suppliers, to the SMEs. This is actually an indication of the importance that we attach to them. No matter what, there is crisis or not, we always pay timely. Strategic partners for us, all of them. You can see our quality certificates and under different departments, industrial departments, but it is mostly the energy systems that I would like to mention about what we are doing. Now, at Aselsan, as the director of the energy, we're working mainly on energy and energy efficiency. It is mostly wind that I will focus on today. In 2017, we started 300 kilowatts of wind turbine, full scale converter, power converter, but it was actually a trial to us. We just wanted to move to higher levels. 4 megawatts started with generator full scale power converter. These are prototypes. And we are just planning for the tests right now, which I will mention later. But of course, what was the next step? What is the next step? This the critical component inside the nacelle. Why Aselsan is interested in this? Because we are dependent abroad for this, and we checked for the market. And with regards to wind turbine, we found that Aselsan should do something that is not ever done in Turkey before. That is actually in our DNA. So we pay attention for this to have an added value. So what we're interested in is inside the nacelle, the generator, the gearbox, and the power converter, and the turbine, and the algorithms, and so on. We put our equity on this. At the second stage, to build the platform that they will live. But this platform, this nacelle, is a critical component, and not actually possible for you to build your own nacelle and sell it elsewhere. So we do licensing nacelle. So in the wind turbine, 4x megawatt wind turbine. And this is trendy. It is portable, and so also we started licensing of the platform. Of course, these are the things that we are doing with wind only in terms of energy, microgrid systems, and we, at the same time, the compact military projects, energy storage management systems, and high voltage DC. We also have R&D on these issues. So after 300 kilowatts, now we move to megawatt. Over the megawatt, generator together with Middle East Technical University and with our team at Aselsan. We are working on a generator. It's now a prototype. And with regards to test investment, I will speak later. Similarly, power converters, also prototype. And in all these, we're not doing technology transfer. All Aselsan specific, the teams, and these are the unique designs by Aselsan. And next, after doing so, how we're just going to test them without, putting them in the turbine on site. At lab environment, we should be able to test them. And we have 15 million US dollars worth of a lab that will be establishing at a facility of Aselsan. Maybe some of you know at Başkent Organized Industrial Estate, Aselsan has a new facility. That's where the lab will be. And in here, both hardware, modeling loop, software, all tests will be performed. Of course, all these investments are not done only for wind. I can say they're still in dual use. Some other technologies in electrified cars and rails, and also in underwater at the same time, submarines, and also in ships, vessels, they are used. So everything will be tested at the same lab, not only for wind. So we're focusing on wind turbine now. Why? Because we cannot actually specify the market, what is inside nacelle, and no one would like to make it with local content. So we thought to ourselves, let's organize the turbine work in Turkey and have a national brand of a wind turbine. So at the same time, just make it actually the flagship. And therefore, we will have more local rights and be a part of the supply chain. Together with EUAŞ, we have the Electricity Generation Corporation. At Alaçatı, the turbines at their end of life. Two of them, now we're changing, replacing them. It will be replaced with the total Aselsan turbines, 2 turbines. We will test them. And so there's a 10 million US dollars worth of an extra budget for this local content. We have the blade, the gearbox, investment, nacelle components, and the establishment of the insulation factory, and the other production will be inside Aselsan, and platform design team will be established, especially at the IT Valley. We'll make a technology transfer for a couple of 4 gigawatts. Then the other 6 gigawatts will be by the Aselsan team. So at the IT Valley, we arranged for this. EUAŞ is supporting us, and there is a program, the Industry Collaboration Program. This is actually awarded to Aselsan as a single source, and we give the offers for 2 turbines will be manufactured totally locally. And the Ministry of Industry and Technology also provides us a lot of support. There will be platform licensing. But after licensing of the platform, there will be system engineering, the development of the subcomponents, and the local supply chain, their management, installation, and commissioning. Everything is assumed by Aselsan. So it's a 36 months of a project with duration. In August, the contract will be signed, and in 36 months, 2 turbines will be locally, again, nationally installed at Alaçatı. So 2 phases of this project. In the first phase, licensing of the platform, then system engineering, supply of the components, local tower, blade, and nacelle assembly, Aselsan turbine control system, installation and commissioning for the first wind turbine. The second, then the power converters of Aselsan, there will be 6 months in between, nacelle installation, and then type certificate. That's how we will proceed. That's not the end, of course. Also at YEKA, we wanted to do something. And we are also working on this now. YEKA, we're interested because these are the projects that are expanding the scales. So at YEKA, as you all know, there's a requirement. And the local rate is important, and they're also asking for an R&D. As Aselsan, of course, we have 8 R&D centers and at least $5 million of investment, we do more than this, and minimum 50 personnel. We actually employ more. And therefore, we are already actually meeting the local content of YECA projects. And the other side is having a unique platform. It's also something a leverage to us because there will be a licensed platform by Aselsan. So the tower and at the same time, lift, for example, the other components in the tower, gearbox, blade, and all. Together with our partners, they're also known. We selected them, so we continue to work with them. That's how our model will work. So we'll have a high local rate. And of course, after this, just like the case in the defense industry, for each supplier or for each partner, better to say, we just would like them to supply abroad. And we're just trying to organize for this. So I will stop here at the second part, in particular, what our approaches in the supply chain. Thank you for your attention.
Evet, Günay Bey, biz teşekkür ediyoruz. Aselsan gurur duyduğumuz bir
Thank you very much. Aselsan has always been a star in our industry, and we are working on qualified human resources. And at the same time, in terms of transportation and energy, they are producing an added value. And it's really very good and pleasing to hear from you your experiences. 300 kilowatts of a trial you mentioned, and you also have informed us about the megawatt class study. Actually, 3 labs for testing is really an important investment. Congratulations, Aselsan. Also, in terms of the intra-sector synergy, many aspects are being discussed, including the converters. Now, the Ask a Question screen we have, but before that, we'll move into the last tour, the last round. And it was vivid discussion, so I didn't want to interfere with the speakers. But in the second round, I will probably interfere and get to questions in between the presentations. Now we will again start from start to the end, and we'll start with Mr. Mahmoud. And in terms of having sustainable gains out of this process, and considering that there may be some untouched issues within our discussion, we can get your recommendations, your suggestions, what we can do as major players in the supply chain, considering your experiences, any additional remarks that you'd like to make. Maybe 3, 4, 5, I said 5, but 5 will not fit in probably in terms of time constraint, but 3, 4 minutes each of you. Any additional comments you'd like to make? Thank you. I mean, I don't want to create a misunderstanding. Yes, we've done very good things, but the coming process may be more challenging than ever. So by 2035, probably, the world is expected to go through a major turbulence. The strong chain that has brought us to this point probably will have some challenges in breaking. And what we need to do is to put forth our experiences to keep that chain sound. This is number one. Number two is the people, the colleagues who are to come and join in the working life are invited to this sector. We need them, and we need to keep investing in quality labor. Especially, we need young people who have sensitivities for environment, because they can have a very active role in this industry, and we support their very existence in this industry, and we need them as well. The third thing is, I envied the other panelists because they all had some special incentives, and Gökhan has blade incentives, some had the R&D incentives, and unfortunately we didn't have such an incentive so far. We have nice plans, and probably my envy in this session probably will be healed in the coming period if we can get ours. Last but not least, I also mentioned that recently, as the manufacturing industry or as the factories or facilities who are manufacturing have been popularized, so to speak. you know that we are generally classified by the economy as the real industry. But before coming here, I checked the meaning of the real. Real means real. I mean, real in wording. The others are probably not defined as real. We are real, and how about them? So maybe this is just being exaggerated, but there are hundreds of people who are going through many of the challenges altogether, trying to sort them out. This is a big challenge, but at the same time, it is a promising business for the future. So it's really everyone who wants to maybe contribute to that are all invited to this industry. Thank you very much. Thank you for the additional remarks. And Gökhan Bey, it's your turn. Thank you, Mahmut, for the nice wishes. But from this outset, and we've been speaking about the trigger point of this business, OEM, Siemens Gamma, representative is here from to component manufacturers, TPI, Ateş Powers. We are here. And the next chain of the supply is Dava Aksash and Aselsan. They have entered this industry, probably will give an additional color to this sector because they have very nice projects in different sectors. So it's all about good developments and opportunities we've been talking about. But on the other hand, everywhere there is an opportunity, next to it, there is the risk. And when there are too many opportunities, there are people who are asking for it. So there is competition in it. So unless we remain competitive, we cannot do any of this because these opportunities will be diamonds as long as we remain competitive, and we will then be able to work in cheaper cost alternatives, as always covered. The Indian factory we've installed by our bare hands, and probably there will be the chance of building others in the EMEA region, but we need to do better. So keeping your competitiveness is based on other factors as well, including number one, a vivid internal market. Incentives, we've discussed about it. Yes, about the incentives. Yes, Turkey is quite, quite generous in competitive incentives as a system. So I think we need to focus the entire power here. As an analogy, a rocket is okay, but the rocket will be out of fuel someday. And for this to happen, when allocating the incentives, I think the required infrastructure is needed as well. The ports, the roads, Chandarla we discussed. Chandarla, one reason why we are all emphasizing Chandarli is this business started in Izmir, and we wanted to grow in Izmir region because in terms of infrastructure and human resources, there is a climate that is supportive of this, and Izmir needs it as well. Last but not least, I want to reiterate the issue of ports and roads. And as long as we have all these prerequisites, there is a bright future awaiting us. Yes, Necmettin. And very briefly, I would like to share with you my presentation. Yes, within the supply chain, of course, the growth of the suppliers depend on the internal market, and then there are some other prerequisites for this growth as well, from skilled workers to knowledge transfer, sustainable environment created for this market, volume really important. 1 gigawatts is okay, and 1.5, and we can do it, and we're ready for it, and this is the expectation in the market, and we need the government support as well. And this market that is still trying to grow needs to be grown with the support of the government, and it's barely in the hands of the government to make this growth possible. In the global scale, what are the most important criteria? Safety. This is number one. And we're working, in an environment which may be hazardous. So we need to avoid vocational, occupational accidents. Quality. Quality is a very big criteria. And delivery. Cost has always been a concern, an issue, especially in the pandemics. The cost of raw material, transportation, all limited. And next to it, these all require strategic agility for everyone when designing, when reporting. And I think I have to say that this is wavy waters, and no one expected pandemic and such a global impact back in 2019. But as always, a risk factor, we need to forecast about these risk factors. Today it's the pandemic, maybe next day it will be something else, but we need to be agile to keep pace with the developments. It's really critical to be aware of these factors and to put them in life. Thank you very much. One additional point, just one thing I forgot. We want women employment to increase. We have so many women engineers in Siemens, and even the leading positions, and we expect this to increase as a market. Yes, in terms of gender equality, wind has been a very important sector. Most of the renewable energy is a big opportunity for here. And which percent of your employees are women? At the level of 20%. In steel manufacturing, we have been working with women colleagues, and we want to increase the number of our colleagues, and we want women to be present in all segments. Gökhan Bey, can you give us a figure for that? Do you know what your percentage of female employees? In the white collars, it's quite high, but in the blue collar, we want more women as well. And we take Ateş as an example, and this is a target for us to grow the numbers. Necmettin Bey, thank you very much for drawing our attention to this as well. Thank you.
Just additionally, in terms of sustainability and competitiveness, it's important. Of course, the market will grow, but we have to preserve our competitive edge. So we should not stop, but continue to work with the new technology, new generation. Everyone should do what they take responsibility for. For example, carbon fiber in the laminate, we should be thinking about new things about the light. Ateş, for example, should be making new designs. And these are the things that we should have in the pocket. And that's the only way for sustainability. And in terms of transformational economy, this recycling issue is also something that we should consider. Reuse and recyclable. As you all know, there's so many end-of-life power plants that will be in Turkey. How we are just going to reuse them? It's an important matter today. There's some consortia established by OEMs as well. So as a country, what we're just going to do, how we can be a part of it, whether we'll get prepared for this or not. I think it's also the time to think about the end-of-life power plants. We're just thinking on our own what we can do about this. But I think this is also something that we should put in our agenda. And with my best wishes to everyone. Thank you. Yes, so important. Either recycling or reuse. Yes, you're right. It's a big issue. And we need a solution for this. So Günay, the floor is yours. I will continue with the presentation. You better start your share screen. So at the supply chain side, there are things that I would like to mention. Now, at the supply side, we actually considered under the deputy department, deputy again head department, especially for supply chain logistics and foreign trade, nationalization and supplier development director. And we're focusing on having the local national content. In particular, incentive is given for the products that are not produced in Turkey or not ever produced before, and to produce it and export it. That is the setting that we have. Since 2018, 400 products nationalized. And as a part of this nationalized products, we have $56 million worth of an open order in these products, and it will go up to 145 million US dollars in the 3-year projection. Once you have local content, there is price advantage, and it makes an added value of 31 million US dollars again for again Aselsan. So we can actually supply them cheaper. How we are doing it? First of all, we have a nationalization policy. We have a catalog, and in the course of years, each and every department under Aselsan has a target, a goal. And as an incentive, you gain scores, points. And 450 nationalization catalogs published. What does that mean? It could be a mechanical, an electronic, a connector, it could be cable, any product that cannot be produced in Turkey. A brochure is prepared for this, and as a result of this, some of the countries go through these catalogs, and then they're working on this. And while they're working on this, Aselsan is sometimes providing financial support or some stakeholder support from time to time, or we give our infrastructure. But of course, especially we provide support for managing the requirements and or the development. So we're open to all the companies. In particular, for wind turbine, as a result of the studies, although we do not have a product yet, but we should understand which product should be nationalized. We're working with them, with the Izmir Development Agency. We talk to with several other companies, and we check who can build what. And the work is ongoing, and you can refer to us anytime. So gücümüz1.com, these are where the catalogs can be accessed. And 5,300 companies we place orders so far. And together with these companies, I can say we feel that we're getting stronger. For wind turbine, I think there's no company that can build it as a whole, so without having suppliers. So at first, for this turbine is included in our policy right now. By the way, there are so many advantages Aselsan actually has from the bank. So our stakeholders can also use our financial means. Together with 12 banks, we have a contract. So our stakeholders can get a loan. And without actually any guarantee, just with Aselsan's placing of orders. At the same time, they can get discounts without actually, they take Aselsan, because Aselsan is actually the proxy there, so they get discount. And at the same time, if they fail to pay at due date, then it is collected. I mean, the credit amount is collected from Aselsan. So we're just trying to develop our stakeholders. So that's all for my talk. I mean, that's our supplier approach. For more details, again, you can possibly contact us. And thank you very much. Thank you, Günay, for this actually. Mahmoud said, I'm actually, I envy everyone actually has an incentive, and actually that's not the case. Of course, Ministry of Energy and Natural Resources. And at the same time, Ramazan Usta is listening to the event, is among the audience. I'm sure that's taken down as a note, and also with our best greetings to Ramazan Usta. So you actually referred to your demand, and the authority from the ministry listened to this. So thank you very much for TWEA for this event. So a lively internal market up to 2030, 1.5, as Necmettin said, Mahmoud said, all the panelists, for 2 gigawatt, the industry is ready. Just to wrap up, there is a need for investment, especially for the gearbox, nacelle, hub requirements, and all others. Also, a synergy with the other industries. I'm thinking about my own authority right now in Turkey. Akkuyu is a large-scale project, and there is also local rate, and there are so many overlaps in particular. with wind. The national regional policies are enough, but we have uncertainties ahead of us, so many turbulences. The rocket actually had a lot of difficulty in launching, so we need a good preparation for this, good planning. And tower should not be overlooked once again. I repeated it for Mahmoud. On the other side, R&D potential. The R&D potential and especially the importance of R&D. You focused offshore again, and at the same time, the Green Deal of EU, and there is actually a development of the market, and there is a certain market indeed, but onshore and offshore is actually quite close to each other. There is a synergy there. So, of course, MENA is actually a region with growth opportunity. You mentioned about Chandarlı Port, you mentioned about logistics. And of course, there is also one thing in here. We need a holistic approach, and the chain should not break up. And there's actually invitation from the industry, especially for our young colleagues. I'm sure we have audience from the universities as well, especially for the wind industry, for the renewables. It is important to not overlook at real industry, private industry, public industry. Of course, the real industry is actually standing still and on its own feet, but private industry is much maybe more connected to the public, but the wind industry is a real industry. But of course, wind is important. Why? It's for this to be the driving force, we should keep wind. We should preserve wind. I think last minute questions. I am checking now the technical team. I'm just checking the questions. Hasip Mahir Ergin. Hello, everyone. A great event. Thank you. A common question. For the towers that are getting more height, you have to redesign the road. Rather than this, is it possible actually to have, for example, a bolt system and multi-piece tower? What do you think about, rather than correcting the roads, changing the towers? Attorney Karaduman, a great event, thank you. The wind industry, especially, are you ready for growth, especially in terms of human resources? What are you doing on this, especially in terms of less investment on fossil? Ramazan Usta, thank you very much for listening to us. Also saying that with our best regards to all the panelists. And thank you very much, Ramazan. And he's also thanking us for joining us. And thank you very much, by the way, for Mr. as well, for maybe it is virtual, but having access to us and listening to us throughout the entire event. So question of Hasip, I will repeat it. Is it possible to have multi-piece and removable, again, towers? And the attorney, Karaduman, asking whether the wind industry is actually ready for the growth that will be triggered by the Green Deal. So last two questions and then last sentence. And actually, sorry for being a little bit late. Yes. I think the first question is about tower. Maybe I better answer that question. At onshore, there's 4 meters, 4.3 meters of a diameter. And it's actually possible to carry up to 5 meters in diameter. The problem is not going far from that. So for over 5 meters, it's not about, yes, not reconstructing the road, but reshaping the design. You're right. And we're also working on design. And soon, yes, it also will be published as an article. If he wishes, he can directly contact with me and I can send the article. I think the second question is for Gökhan because he actually employs more staff than any of us. Yes, with regards to Green Deal, is the industry ready for the driving force of the Green Deal? Yes. 2050, again, net zero carbon goal. Are we ready for this? Gökhan? I think it's a question more on the human resources, whether we are ready as human resources, if I'm not mistaken. Yes. Well, I think the reason why we attract investment is actually HR. And so why India is actually considered as the establishing factor, why TPI actually has given that task to us. It's all about the human factor. Yes, we are ready in terms of human resources and we can empower us. As the industry, we actually have go over the baby steps we've learned. As long as we have the opportunities, as long as investments are coming, there's nothing that we cannot support in terms of human resources. That's actually the area that we are the most comfortable with. Yes, thank you all. And Salman at the same time thanking for women employment and also a reminder of the women lawyers. But the last words, so thank you very much for all the participants. I would like to thank to TWEA for the executive board, for your contribution to the industry. I would like to thank for the sponsors of the event. If no further words, then I would like to applaud you all. Thank you very much for this event. And I hope you will have so much win. Thank you. Thank you all.